everyone, to today's Empowerment Clinic. From diagnosis to determined, grace, grit, and getting back up. I will be your host, Rachel Bromley, TMA Senior Manager of Patient Education, Support, and Advocacy. And before we get started, let's go over some housekeeping notes. We are so happy to have you here with us today. And if you could, please let us know where you are tuning in from. Put it in the chat. Make sure it goes to everyone, not just hosts and panelists. You can tell in that little drop down arrow in the blue box, you can make sure it goes to everyone so we can see how far this community reaches. Before we get started, disclaimer, TMA does not give medical advice. Our educational webinars are informational, and we encourage you to make all decisions about your care in partnership with your healthcare team. TMA is very grateful for our expert speakers from all over the world. We ask each speaker to disclose any potential conflicts at the start of their presentation. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on the YouTube channel around the 1st of next month. And please put any questions you have in the Q&A box. Pre-submitted questions are being loaded into Q&A by TMA staff. Questions put in the chat box might be missed. TMA evaluates its programming to ensure we are meeting the needs of the myositis community. A survey will pop up at the end of the webinar, and we ask that you please take a few minutes to provide input to inform future programming. It is my pleasure to introduce to you Alicia Polak. Sorry, I'm scrolling down to the bio. Thank you, guys.
Good morning, everybody.
Yes, hello. Alicia Polak is a seasoned social entrepreneur, advisor, TEDx speaker, and storyteller. As founder of the Disabled Company and principal at Create Advisors, she has helped shape sustainable impact ventures globally, from South Africa's longest-running social enterprise to guiding nonprofit and for-profit leaders in the U.S. Alicia previously taught social entrepreneurship at Wharton, served as a Fuse Corps Executive Fellow for the City of Oakland, and worked in capital markets at Merrill Lynch before becoming a vice president at BlackRock. After being diagnosed with Inclusion Body Myositis, Alicia set out to turn lemons into lemonade, founding the Disabled Company to empower others with disabilities to live able, authentic, and adaptive lives. She brings humor, grit, and practical advocacy into her work without letting her diagnosis define her purpose. Today, we are going to talk about those themes, able, authentic, and adaptive, and offer hope to those navigating life with a rare disease without offering medical advice. Alicia's message is clear. You can rewrite your story even when the script changes. Thank you, Alicia, for being here.
Thank you so much for having me today at TMA's Empowerment Clinic. I really appreciate it.
Yes, well, why don't you go ahead and share your slides and do your presentation, and then we'll move on to the Q&A.
Sure. Firstly, I just want to thank everybody so much. I see all these places from across the globe, some wish list places. I'd love to come to New Zealand, and shout out to Bristol, PA. After I moved from New York, we lived exit 4 off the New Jersey Turnpike. I have a feeling that will resonate with some people. So thank you so much for spending your morning with me. And as Rachel gave in her wonderful introduction, today we're going to talk to you about the working title, which is Grace, Grit, and Getting Back Up. And in other words, I want to talk about what it means to be able and authentic and adaptive, because I believe, I love alliterations. I believe this is all synonymous. So my talk today, it's not just going to be about a diagnosis. It's about pre, in between, and after. Full disclosure, I don't know the after yet because I'm right in the thick of it. And it's also about here comes the grace and the grit, about falling down, and sometimes it's figuratively, and for a lot of us, it's literally falling down, getting back up, and deciding to live with this grace, grit, and guts, which I believe are all intertwined. And look, I'm not a doctor. I can't give medical advice, full disclosure, but I'm just here to offer something that I hope can be as useful as some of these many medications we take, which is a little bit of hope, some humor, and definitely some hard-won words of wisdom. So I think before we get going, I'd like to give myself just a brief introduction, but very brief because Rachel did such a great one, just so I have a little bit of street credibility. So I was born in the Bronx. I grew up kind of career-wise at Merrill Lynch and BlackRock. And then I left my very nice corner office to go to Sub-Saharan Africa, specifically South Africa, shortly after the end of apartheid, because I believed with some of the logistics and planning and organizational skills I learned on Wall Street that I could hopefully make a small dent in what's called a societal ill, which is unemployment, which is very important to me. That's a whole other story. And I believe there's going to be a link to the TED Talk, should you wish to watch it, where I speak more in depth about this. But I wound up forming what's called a social enterprise, and that just means that the sole goal is not profit, it's resolving or trying to solve that societal ill. So that could be clean water. Like I mentioned, for me, it was solving unemployment. So I first started as a consultant in South Africa distributing humanitarian aid. Those radios counted as a tool for humanitarian aid to disseminate information. And then fast forward, I started a cookie company. Now, did I bake? No. The world's worst baker that you could ever imagine, and all I did was work, so I had never turned an oven on a day in my life. But I got to South Africa. I decided the cookies were going to be the widget, not because I cared so much about cookies, nor, as I said, could I make them. And that was a way to create sustainable and what we call replicable income for women who were particularly caught up under the web of apartheid. And the first word I learned in the South African language was hamba, which means get out, because baker's tip, if you're making cookies with full fat like peanut butter, put a pan down. The fat dripped on the coil and I set the oven on fire. So, this goes back to grace and grit. Although I was not feeling very great or graceful that day. So from there, with a lot of these experiences, I was asked to give a TED Talk. I hope that the next one is more aligned with what we're all going through now. But I have to work on that a bit. And what I can say is that out of all the hats I've worn, I don't think that there's a hat that fits me more tightly or better than as the founder of the Disabled Company. So I started the Disabled Company as a way to share, disseminate information, and really mostly learn, and then figure out how I can take all these learnings and put them out into our groups and more, so people learn about us, and also so I can create some tips and tools. And I'll get more onto that later. But the focus at the Disabled Company, and you can see from the logo, is not about the DIS, short for disabled, but the focus is on the abled. So I loved all this work I was doing, and while I was in the midst of all of this, I was literally and figuratively, whether it was at the cookie company, like running and running from place to place, distributing cookies. And then on the weekends, I was running half marathons and trail runs. I really was not good at those because even before this, I wasn't like the most steady on my feet. But, like most of us, you just wear so many hats and you go and go and go. So I don't think, anybody here today, anyone listening wants to be part of our special group. And life had a different plan for me. And I think for most of you here today, whether that's you personally or as a caregiver or as a friend to somebody within the myositis type of family. So my life felt like it changed in an instant. So one day I was playing with my dog. This is Bessie. And I will forewarn you multiple times that I am a huge animal advocate. So this presentation will be peppered with quite a few pictures of my pet family, my fur baby. So um, this is Bessie, and you can see she's smiling. And we were playing on the floor, and we were laughing. I was having a great time, and I literally got stuck on the floor. When I tried to get up, and I'm wondering how many of you had this experience, my legs just would not go. My body would not cooperate at all. So if you look at that middle slide, you'll see that test. Yeah, I see the thumbs up. I mean, I tried everything to get up. I was like flailing myself against the wall, the sink, nothing. Um, if you look at this test for aldolase, the results, if you look at the green is the range where it should be. So it's in what, 1.2 to 7.6. And I'm all the way on the outside to the right, well, depending what side you're looking at this. And if you look at, so I'm well out of range. And if you look at the test date, it's August 26, 2022. That was 1 month and 26 days after my mother passed away. So I forewarn you, this part's not going to be pleasant, but I want this to be about grace, guts, and determination. I tell you that my mother was incredibly gracious, full of grit and tenacity till her last day, but she did die of inclusion body myositis. So, again, I'm not a doctor. I do believe thank you. Yeah, she was a wonderful, wonderful mom. I do believe that there's a genetic component. This is just some information for you. I'm having my genome done, and we'll have to wait and see what they figure out from there. But I thought that, and more on this later, I thought I was just worn out from, too many planes and trains and, oh, thank you, too many planes and trains and automobiles. And of course, the death of a parent. Like I said, I was so close to my mom. So I thought getting stuck on the floor was, oh, please raise your hand if I'm talking too fast, because I can go pretty quickly. It's the New Yorker in me. And I just thought that getting stuck on the floor was part of this chronic exhaustion, and it was a fluke. As I mentioned, I was a very avid hiker. Once I slowed down the running, I picked and moved back to the US. I was always hiking. Camping was just my go-to. I loved it so much. If anybody's looking for some great camping equipment, reach out to me. It's not getting used right now. But I also have bad plantar fasciitis just from all the hiking and running. So I kept talking it into myself that it was something from a hiking injury, it was from my foot. And then when I got that aldolase test, it clearly showed something was wrong. So I'd love to tell you that that test, I might be pointing the wrong way. That test was the one where they nailed this disease right away. And I bet there's a lot of people who can resonate with this. It was after more tests than I can count, MRIs, CAT scans, X-rays for a broken foot, you name it. I don't think there's anyone listening who cannot relate to this statement about the extensive testing and doctor's visits. And again, if not for you personally, for a family member or for a friend. So it was probably about 7 more months from this point where they figured out it was some kind of an inflammatory disease or an IIM, an idiopathic inflammatory myopathy. So originally they thought it was polymyositis. So I wound up calling it the itis. So sometimes I just refer to it as the itis. It's kind of like a soft pet name for what it is. And finally, about my walking was just getting horrible and I was sleeping all the time. So about a year after this mark, they finally started giving me infusion treatments, which it consisted of Reabni and IVIG. So I want to talk to you about This is where the grit and the grace comes in. So this is me in the Alicia G. Polak Memorial Chair. Now, I'm receiving IVIG treatment, and this is again where we come back to the working title and what it means: grace, grit, and getting back up. And it's all wrapped up in what I said. I love alliterations, in being adaptive, and very importantly, being a self-advocate, or if you're not in that position, because I know that this can just knock the wind out of all of us, that you have somebody to advocate for you. So I had those treatments for IVIG 5 days a week, 7 hours a pop, because they were making me sick, so I needed a very slow infusion rate. And they did not have a reclining chair for me. So I sat like this for 6 hours a pop. And I'm sure you can imagine, or hopefully you have not dealt with it, where this is so uncomfortable. So what I want to say to you before I tell you the story is, please don't ever think you cannot challenge the system, you cannot ask for better, and you cannot demand the best for yourself. It just takes a bit of grit wrapped in a bit of grace. So I told them that the chair was not comfortable. And from there, I started escalating. That's right, we can all do this. And I'm happy to give you more and more tips. I started escalating my complaints to the head of the department. And when they told me that there were no chairs, the chairs were too expensive, I thought, okay. So I took pictures of the chairs. I just did Google search image, and I got quotes for them. Full disclosure, it was Kaiser. And those quotes for a new chair were a third of the cost of the chair. This is a reclining chair I'm sitting in, of the price they were paying for them. So I told Kaiser first, nicely, with grace, that if they didn't order the chair for me, that I would find one at a lower cost, which I did, and I would have that delivered to their shipping dock with a PO, or a purchase order, attached to it and addressed to Kaiser. So I'm wondering if anybody knows what would happen next. I don't think they ordered the chair for me, but with a little bit of grace and talking to some other folks that I knew, they did miraculously within a week find the Alicia G. Polak Memorial Chair. So that is what it's known at Kaiser. That is my go-to chair. And I think we can all imagine what will happen if that chair is not there. I do have to start more on this later, but I do have to restart my treatments, and I'll get to that. But that chair is going to be there. So that is how we came to the Alicia G. Polak Memorial Chair. And again, if I can do this, you can do this too. It just takes an awful lot of grit. You have to wrap it in grace, make the right friends, and you will get the right answers. It's not perfect, but still, after this diagnosis, I was still unraveling from here, because now the only thing I had was the IVIG. There were some doctors who even were telling me it's stress. And then it took another full year before I was diagnosed with inclusion body myositis. So that diagnosis was done in conjunction with a study from NIH. And NIH, for those of you outside the US, and I do hope I get that invite to go visit New Zealand, it's on my bucket list, is the National Institute for Health. So I am part of a research trial there, not a clinical trial, so there's a difference. I don't receive any drugs, but basically they study me. As a postscript, if any of you are interested in the contact details for the research study and who to reach out to, I will gladly share direct numbers, emails with you, but just as and how to get involved in this process. But just as a disclaimer, right now, because of our current administration, their funding is severely limited. But they are the ones who are undertaking this genome study that I worked. So look, I've had to learn how to advocate for myself in a system, in a medical system that isn't particularly built for most of us due to the rarity of the diseases. And I think so many of you are familiar with that picture of sitting in the chairs for hours. And I know for so many of us, it was just the beginning. I had no idea. I mean, I did see a lot of this with my mother. Um, and it was actually worse for her because it was a few years prior, but more on that later. So I think one of the lessons that I've learned the most is that you must accommodate for all that grit and all that determination you're putting out there with a bit of what I call self-grace. So, right, we're probably all very good at being gracious to others, and we've probably all been caretakers for everybody in our kind of gamut of persons, but the self-grace comes in handy because these treatments, appointments, and even kind of duking it out a little bit about the Alicia G. Memorial Chair, they are taxing. So many of us have just had to clench our teeth and really grit through the pain, not only of all the tests and the appointments and the treatments. And how many of us have had biopsies and been hooked up to that draconian thing that measures your muscles? Full disclosure, I'm not going to lie, I've had a little bit of Botox in my days. And that draconian hooking up of the muscles was actually not bad for me. I was like, oh, it's like some Botox shots. But oh, okay. So anyway, I digress. But look, these things are painful and they knock a lot of the wind out of you. So these are the hard days. So I want to talk to you about the grace part. So grace and grit, these included in this are mental health days too. So I forewarned you that there were going to be some more photos of my pets. So just in terms of the grace, as I mentioned before, it's always good to have a great working relationship with all your caretakers. You know, I'm not prescribing this for everybody else, but you know, I know everybody from the doctors to the cleaners to the nurses. And when you go in for all these treatments, you know, taking a little time to get to know about them, their family, their fur family, it goes a long way in your care and will carry you over to these mental health days because they count too. You know, everybody at Kaiser knows all about my pets. I know about theirs, and they're very invested in my care. So look, we all have such busy lives. We've got family, pets, children, husbands, wives, dogs, cats, nieces, nephews, and we're just going, going, and going. And this is where we get to here where we have to give ourselves grace and grit in these mental health days. That's what I call them, whatever you want to call them. And there's multiple ways to go along about this. So one, give yourself space to have that grace. So, as I mentioned again, my presentation would be peppered with animal photos. So, depending what way you're looking, this is the Rottweiler again, and that's my very naughty, slightly overweight cat Maz, and both rescue animals, which brings me great joy. But I'm in the middle. I had to fight for that space. And my point is that it really took me so much time to get to the point where I would slow down and have these mental health days. I was very embarrassed to let people know because it's contrary to my personality that I needed to rest. But on these days, they really allowed me to rejuvenate, rest, and relax. And what I learned was nobody's judging me and nobody's judging you. You can slow down. Like I said, I had such a big problem allowing myself just to do this and just to watch TV with my pets. And you know what? It's not for everybody. I'm not prescribing sitting and watching endless amounts of TV, but when I need to, when I am just absolutely exhausted, this is my coping mechanism when I'm overwhelmed. So I have days where this happens, and these days count. So I want to talk to you about climbing your own mountains. And I mentioned a bit earlier my love of hiking. So here I am hiking. That person below me is my husband. And this hike is called the Staircase to Heaven. As a referral, it is in Hawaii. I promise you, I do not call it the Staircase to Heaven after doing it. I call it quite the converse. And I can promise you that I complained every step of the way. So this is on the way up. Now, on the way down, again, I told you it's in Hawaii and the weather gets pretty spotty there. So on the way down, we ran into I'm laughing, but it's not funny, a treacherous rainstorm. I was stuck in a crevasse. And as I went to yell for help, there was a mudslide. The mud slid into my mouth and I almost asphyxiated. So you ask why I did all this hiking. So fun. But when the mud got caught in my throat, I thought this was it. But yeah, that wasn't very fun. Two people had to pull me out of that crevasse. And the funny thing is, to this day, my husband keeps saying, "What a great hike this was." Um, we're very lucky we're still married after that hike. But I learned something really important from this, is that we can all get thrown into some really horrible situations, but we still have to keep going. So I finished that hike. Again, I didn't talk to my husband for a while after that, but I promise you I finished that hike. And not every step was strong, but every step mattered. And that holds true for me with IBM. And I hope you know that holds true for wherever you are in your itises. I want to tell you that whatever your mountain looks like, whether it's a doctor's visit, a flight of stairs, or asking for help, just keep climbing all your stairs no matter what. And yes, now you have to be a bit more adaptive and a bit more abled in terms of maybe reaching out for help. But for me now, sometimes my mountains are getting out of bed. They most certainly are walking up just the 12 stairs to my house, which are on days as hard for me now, those stupid 12 steps, as that hike was. But it's all about having that grit and being adaptive and finding creative paths forward. So things are very different for me now, and probably for many of you. As I said, we've all had to become more and more adaptive. And suddenly, this grit you didn't know you have, and determination, and literally and figuratively getting back up, we're all finding that. And I hope it's wrapped with some grace and some humor. I never thought I could be more adaptive than I am. So I think you can all find your creative path forward, no matter where you are or whatever your itis is. And I think that because my diagnosis was as I mentioned, because my diagnosis was originally called polymyositis, I call it the itis. And around that time, I was just feeling so helpless with this newly found diagnosis. I felt like I still have to have something to offer. So I created the disabled company, again, where the focus is on the abled and not the dis. I spoke to that at the beginning of the talk, and it really gave me pause to think about what information I wanted to learn, how I want to share it, the kind of digestible bites and chunks I want to put that information out into the world. And so, like travel guides, this is a work in progress for disabled persons, which I'm working on. I'm still learning all the places I need to go, literally and figuratively. So I really look at this now as an opportunity to learn. I've had to learn so many new things. I'd love to see some thumbs up if if this resonates with you. Like, these are some things I saw with my mom, but if you ever told me I was going to be an expert in what I call toilet bowl toppers, I would not have believed you in a million years. And again, yes, I had to look into all these things for my mother, but I am utterly apoplectic and perplexed as to how poorly the ADA standards do not match for people just like us. There is not a fit. An ADA toilet bowl is basically lying on the floor because it's not necessarily built for people with, I'll speak for myself, with IBM where my trunk muscles are shot. So I try, I try new products, and when something doesn't work, by the way, I still do give this drive a thumbs up if you can bring it with you or ship it ahead somewhere. But you're not going to carry it, run down the aisle on an airplane with this chunky thing, and you'll kill yourself in the bathroom. So again, I started thinking about my own solutions. And right now, I'm mocking up a lightweight, travel-worthy foam toilet bowl seat that you can bring with you. I currently call her Tina, the toilet bowl helper. I've named all my gear. So Lurch, big fan of the Addams Family. Lurch is my cushion, and Tina's the toilet bowl topper. So look, there's many available on the market. I'm happy to give you any of my suggestions, but I just want one more item for all of us. It's not currently available. But what I have to tell you is, and this is where the grace is wrapped in with the grit. If this doesn't come to fruition, you know what? Whether it takes off or not, it does give me the ability to feel like I'm a little bit more in control and to find creative paths forward. Now, I'm not going to take you into the restroom with me now, but I am at a hotel. Like I mentioned, I have so many fur babies. It's really hard to get quiet. And I'm hoping most of you are animal lovers, but that big cat loves to sit right on top of presentations when I'm doing that. And also, I wanted to come to the hotel and test out Tina the toilet bowl topper. She's currently prototype available in lavender. So it's also about getting creative with things you already have in your repertoire or things that you own. So for me, I now use these hiking poles. They're just a very inexpensive pair of leaky hiking poles. But what's most important, if you can see the little feet on there, those are just rubber toppers, $10 from REI, or you can get them anywhere online. I think I actually got that pair at Amazon. And they're shaped like little sneakers, so they give you more ground coverage. So I only used hiking poles for very difficult technical hikes, but you know what? I have to be gracious with myself. And this is allowing me to get around and get out and about now. So I'm not sure if I mentioned yet that I am the world's worst photographer and an even more horrific videographer. But this is about living abled. This is about having a lot of grit, a lot of grace, because you're going to have to, I have had to ask for help, which is something I was not very good at. At the airports now, yes, I go in a wheelchair. I always try to learn about the people who are taking me from A to B, and I just make sure I'm putting myself in a safe surrounding to get to where I want to go. So this photo here, again, terrible photos, is what I hope can be, or some form of it, a possibility for all. I was an absolute road warrior. Like nothing got me more excited than going in airport, having downtime, and my very particular coffee setup. But as my IBM has progressed, I'm happy to share more about this. I started getting just really stuck in my own head. And yes, I've had quite a few falls. And I just didn't want to travel anymore. So, but I had to adapt and I had to get that grit back. So I just talking to myself, I'm like, you're a Jedi, you're a Jedi. And sometimes even when I'm walking through the hospital, I one day was saying, okay, Alicia, you're a Jedi, because they had to do all my IVs in oncology. Then I had to walk to the overflow clinic. So I thought I was going to pass out. So I was walking down the hallway going, okay, you're a Jedi, you're a Jedi. And I passed pediatrics, and the little boy came running up to me. He's like, you're not a Jedi. I was like, okay, I'll just mutter that under my breath next time. But I had to get that grip back. So yes, after much intrepidation, I flew with my best friend and I went to Paris, and I went to meet with a doctor who specializes in treating IBM. I'm happy to share his name, but for full disclosure, I'm half French and it's via the French citizenship he's able to see me, but for full disclosure, he can't actually treat me. It's the whole thing with the bureaucracy with the French government, but he is a good resource. And again, I'm happy to share his name. So I used those exact hiking poles to get my way through Paris, and I carried around in a bag. I carried Tina the toilet bowl topper. My best friend carried Lurch, the cushion, and I used a backpack instead of a purse, a very, very light, tiny backpack. And that's how I got around. So I'm adapting and adapting and adapting, and it allowed me to have this day. So again, horrible photos. The one picture was of, I'm all about the 80s music. There was a street performer. He's the one in the yellow baseball cap, slash beret, and he was playing amazing 80s music. So you can't see, but I got out there and I actually did a little dancing. I fancy myself a good dancer, but the only time I can dance well is when I'm in the water, because then it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I really suck at dancing. But point being, I was able to do it. And I had days with the poles where I was able to walk 5 miles, but disclosure, those 5 miles were broken out into probably 15 hours over the day because I was so happy to be out and about. And again, not recommending this as part of a healthy diet, but I just had copious amounts of cafe au laits, and this is cliche, but I do love French fries. I don't know what it is about them, but because I was adaptive and I had a lot of tenacity or grit, I was able to do this. And yes, there was a fall. Um, Two people got me up very quickly. It was just a curb, but I got right back up, right? That could have derailed the whole trip. But because I believe, and I'd love you all to believe, no matter where you are in your disability, you are still able, you are still authentic, and you are adaptive, and you have more grit and grace and the determination to get back up than you know. So I want to circle back to those mountains that we saw earlier in the photo. And look, I'm so fortunate I made it to the summit. And what I want to tell you, and it's applicable to these horrible photos I took, there's a saying, but they were very enjoyable, that when you hike your own hike, even when you're with a big group, I was with 15 people all the time, you are still hiking your own hike. And this is where the grit, the determination, and either the advocacy or self-advocacy comes in, is that you still have to hike your own hike. So again, even if you're with a big group, you are physically moving yourself step by step. Now, maybe now our steps are more in our mind because of some of our mobility challenges, but you are still going to summit. And many of those days I didn't get there by myself, even at peak fitness. I certainly didn't get there fast all the time. Sometimes I was the fastest, but I got there. So this is what I believe we can all aspire to do. We have to set mini summits, and that we have to work a bit harder to achieve those now than the big summits maybe you had in your past. And again, I mean, I feel like when I look at those 12 steps every day, that summit again is no greater than those hikes I showed you. But I'm going to have to adapt. We're going to have to make some changes, and I have to use a lot of grit and determination to deal with that right now. So that's what I think this is all about. We have to learn how to get to our own summits. And all of us, we have to share tools and stories and hacks. I mean, some of us most have the most impressive, craziest, full of grit and determination hacks. I've got a hack for getting up I learned from a physiotherapist. And I got a great hack from, I think a lot of you know, Joe Sanchez. He's not very active on the Facebook. He referred me to Courage Health. That's Courage with a K. Reach out to me if you want information. So I'm getting great online, customized, for free PT. So we can all share these types of information with others. So we not only enable ourselves, right? That's hiking your own hike, but with others to reach their own summits. And that's hiking with the group, so to speak. So whether that's getting through TSA with those polls, the slide before, happy to share information about that, or figuring out who's got the information so we don't all have to constantly reinvent the wheel. Like, where are the really accessible hotels? I mean, this is my next mission. As I mentioned, hotels that are ADA accessible are not particularly accessible for all of us. So that's what I'm working on, and I want to start sharing that. We're learning how to talk to your doctor and advocate for yourself. I'm there. I've been there and I'm still there. And right now, my Adelase and my creatinine levels are actually through the roof. I will start Reabni again. That's a longer treatment. And then I'm trying some other semi-experimental treatments like NAD. I can talk more about that, or if you have any questions. So look, I'm in the thick of it. I'm dressed and ready to go today, but there's been a lot of just sleeping because I am so full of fatigue because this is just when your Adelase and creatinine levels are so high, I mean, I can barely, get out of bed. So there's multiple faces today, is game day to talk to all of you and I want to look presentable, but please don't be fooled. It is a very hard struggle for me. So please know that I understand most likely some aspect of what you're going through, or a family member, or a friend, or a loved one. So I believe that by sharing all of our knowledge, that together all our summits await. And I know that it's a huge challenge, and it's definitely about that fatigue I mentioned, but I still believe there's joy to be had. Like, I am still intrinsically me, and you are still intrinsically you. It's a very fierce, flawed, and occasionally fabulous journey we are all on. I mean, that trip to Paris for me, it was just 4 days, gave me so much energy, and just really got my head back in the right space because I felt so trapped that I couldn't do something I loved. And again, I had to become so adaptive. Yes, I had a fall. I was okay. I didn't get hurt, but I got right back up. So I know we all know this, but I really want to thank you for walking this path with me today. It's so important to be here. I am incredibly generous and gracious that you've all shared your time with me. And if you remember nothing else, please remember that you are able, you are authentic, you have more grit, you have more self-determination, you have the ability to get up. And yes, we now have to be more able in a different way, authentic and adaptive, and full of that grace, grit, and the ability to always get up. And getting up may just look a different way now. So I want to thank you so much. And I look forward to speaking with many of you, either via email or the chats. And please feel free to reach out. But I do have one more slide. And again, I mentioned if you think these photos were bad, I'm an even worse videographer, but I do have a slide I want to show you. It's about 3 minutes, and ignore the beginning part. This was me talking more to myself about getting the website up and running for the disabled company, but it really shows you a little bit about grit and determination, and hopefully you get to see a little bit of the background of where I am right now. Hey, it's Alicia from the Disabled Company. So I've been thinking about all these different opening videos for the launch of the website. And, I never promised professional polished videos. It's just not going to be my thing. And my thing is the real deal. So I wanted to talk to you about overcoming adversity and just tenacity. So this is where I am right now. I'm by myself. I'm located in California, and this is one of my favorite areas. But I haven't been here in so long. It's just been really a mental hump and a physical hump with the inclusion body myositis. So I'm 1.27 miles out from the parking lot. So anybody with these inflammatory diseases, IIMs, or inclusion body myositis, you know how painful it is to walk sometimes. And I don't know if it just comes with depression as well. And I've been battling that. So, which by the way, doesn't mean that I'm not functional on a work level. I think we have to be really cognizant of letting people know that, just because you have IPM or IIM or whatever your itis is, you can still work and function. Just other areas of your life that might be really hard to navigate. And for me, it's been walking and just getting out of the house. So I just decided today I was going to get up without my dog so I could really manage the walk by myself. Well, you'll hear a lot about my dogs and hear a lot from them. And this is where I am right now. The water is just like absolutely gorgeous, lapping. You can hear it. And it took a bit to walk here. So I'm 1.27 miles out, which means I've got to walk back 1.27 miles. And I know it's just so peaceful, and I don't really have a plan for walking back, but sometimes you just got to do it. So it did take a lot to get out here. I did it by myself, which feels great. I know it's not possible for everybody. It's possible for me for right now. So I guess the whole point of my making this video is the opening is you just have to find whatever you've got left in you, just have a little tenacity. And if you need help, ask for it. There have been lots of times where I can't walk by myself. I really am having a hard time walking without aids. So I have my poles here, and they're just black diamond hiking poles. They're not very expensive. These have gone up like 15,000 feet mountains. So now they're going on just a small hike with me, and I'm just so happy. So I hope you'll come here, visit with me, ask lots of questions. Maybe we'll have a big hiking group come out to California and just do a gentle hike. This hike it could be potentially ADA accessible. I can reach out to some folks and make that happen. That's one thing that I really want to do. So without further ado, I'm just going to be really quiet and let you listen to the sound of this beautiful bay lapping. And we'll end here. And have a great day, everybody. So I hope you enjoyed that video. That was just so you could see me out and about, and it was such a lovely day. And no fur babies with me on that trip because I really wanted to focus. But that's it. That's about showing up even when it's hard. And it's a lot of grit and determination to get back to the parking lot. But, right now, I don't think I can do that. But I've been advocating a great deal for myself, and we're going to have the doctors start working on putting me back together again. And I'd love to turn it back over to Rachel. And again, I'm so grateful for all the time. I know you could be a lot of other places today, but thank you so, so much.
Thank you, Alicia. You can stop sharing your slides and then we'll move into the Q&A. And one of the things I wanted to talk about, I've struggled with, and I've seen a lot of myositis patients and their care partners struggle with, and it's the grace part that you're talking about. And when we say grace, the definition of being in a state of kindness, whether to others or to ourselves. I just feel that a lot of us can be so self-critical and not understanding. How do you get yourself into the mental space to ultimately have that self-compassion, that understanding, that kindness?
So I think we are all innately empathetic. I think sometimes in a very busy world, maybe it gets tucked away, but I really look, there are days when, especially being within a big HMO system, which Kaiser, for those of you not from the US, it's a big HMO system where you go to one place and all your services are provided there. And it is hard to be gracious sometimes when you're just lost in the shuffle and begging for appointments and answers. But I always feel like if I just take a step back, literally a step back, and there's multiple ways to do this. I mean, I'm not the best at meditating. I have a bit of what they call monkey brain, but I can slow down for just a few minutes. Like I said, I really believe in pet therapy. I've got a lot of pets. I can just kind of hang out with them for a second, absent of having pets. Maybe listen to one of your favorite songs, just step back a second and then remember ultimately there are people trying to help you. And I actually really do like knowing like the names of the nurses, the names of the cleaning staff, where they come from, what they do in their personal lives. If you just, you know, slow your roll, then you can start connecting better with people. And I promise you, like by having all these, their work friends, we'll call them colleagues at all the places I go to, that you will get better care. People will look out for you. So step back, remember that there are people who do care about you, and sometimes you just have to accept these doctors are just going from A to B, and you might not be getting the grace you want from them, but it doesn't make you unable to put out some grace. So those are just kind of some of my tips for how to be gracious. And my dad comes up with some good ones one now and again, but you really do get more bees with honey. If you go in screaming at providers and yelling, you're not gonna get anything out of it.
Yeah, kindness changes everything. I have shared aliciapolak.com in the chat, but people are looking for the disabledcompany.com. Is it
Ye-
live yet?
yes, it's www.thedisabledcompany.com.
www.thedisabledcompany.com. Okay, I put that in the chat. We had a pre-submitted question. How did you find your supportive tribe that focuses on abilities over limitations?
I think I was pretty lucky. I've had the same friends for a long, long time. So that wasn't too hard.
Are they
Um,
understanding of it when your disease was invisible?
well, I mean, look, for me, because my mother had it, and many of my friends, these are long old time friends, knew my mom. I
Right.
think it wasn't the hugest shock
Hmm.
when I got the diagnosis, but almost all of them have been very supportive. Friends now come to see me more than I go to see them. On the days I can do a gentle walk, we do a gentle walk. But, it's been a little hurtful. This is where kind of that grit comes in. Have had to grit my teeth a bit. Yeah, I've lost a couple friends along the way because what I realized was the nature the nature of the friendship um was solely physical, meaning hiking, hiking, hiking. And when I was not really purposeful for a couple of these folks, meaning can't keep up, I don't hear from them anymore. So I lost a few along the way. And then the beauty of it is you really find out who is here with you.
Hmm. Absolutely.
It's not,
Um,
sometimes that's a painful lesson.
Self-advocacy is a big part of your message. What are some tips you'd give to someone who's just starting to advocate for themselves in healthcare settings?
Yes. So one, this is my biggest tip, is even as you're beginning, like you said, it's really important to be organized. You cannot, or let me not be so directive, but it's very challenging to advocate for yourself if you don't know the steps of how to do this. So first of all, if you don't use a project planning software like Asana or Monday.com or Jira, then just get a notebook and start lining up columns. So is it tests you need to go for? Is it doctor's visits? And then I have another column where I kind of keep my mantra of grace, grit, determination, able, authentic, and adaptive in another column. So I'm constantly focusing on that. But when you're advocating, I think if you don't know the methodical steps, then I think it's very challenging to get yourself organized and self-advocate because you're just kind of like a ping pong. Yeah, I love this. I have binders and divide each provider. So I have somewhat the same, but I use Asana. Um, I love Asana, and I'll probably be putting out some free lessons on the website. Let me know if anybody's having problem finding the website.
Alicia, you mentioned people reaching out to you. May I put your, or may you put your email in the chat?
Yes.
And then, yeah, Linda put something about MyoCon in the chat, and Alicia's going to be at MyoCon, so you can.
Yes, I am with my 82-year-old fit as a fiddle father.
Wonderful. We're looking forward to meeting him and seeing you in person. Do you have any last words before I close?
Yeah, I just want to say, again, if you have any more questions, please feel free to email me with those. If you're not getting onto the website, please email me. The TED Talk, you can, if you weren't getting that link, it's from flower. You can look it up on YouTube and it's just called From Flower to Fortitude. But again, I really want to thank you all so much. And everybody, I hope everybody can go on. Thank you so much, Melissa, with grace and grit. And, I'm here to offer support and antidotes and pet therapy advice. So thank you again. It's been such a great morning. I've enjoyed it so much, and thank you so much. I saw the comments coming through, and yes, hopefully we'll all be able to hike our own hikes again. I'm hoping it's just a matter of time. So we'll all get there. And thank you so much to Rachel and TMA for organizing this. It takes a lot of work for Rachel to get all this together. And I'm so excited and I hope to see you again.
Yes, thank you so much. We appreciate you taking the time and sharing your story with us. And speaking of, let's talk about what's coming up at TMA. What do we have coming your way? Um, 1 second. They like to move the share button on me. All right, there we go. We have Ask the Expert. It is Cell Therapy Edition coming up August 19th with Dr. Ventura and Dr. Kosuri. So we are very excited about that. It is sponsored by Bristol Myers Squibb. So thanks to them. And of course, we've got the conference that we talked about in the chat, and then we have our next new member orientation October 10th that you're welcome to come no matter how long you've been a part of TMA. It's a lot of good information and connecting with your supportive people like you. And then of course we have roughly 45 support and affinity groups, and you can register today on our new events calendar, and that link was also put into the chat by Linda. And that's it for today. Thank you so much, and we will see you at the next event. Bye now.
Thank you. See you all at the conference. Bye.
Bye.